There is one particular way of rolling out a work management platform like ClickUp for teams under 50 that by far results in the best adoption outcome. I call it the coaching method, and it's going to be quite different from what you'll hear from other conventional tool implementation experts. In this video, I will be breaking down my coaching method step by step so that you will know how to roll out ClickUp across your own company. A quick scope check before we dive in. This is for a full org rollout, meaning it's not for a single project, it is not for a sub-team. If you just want to manage one campaign in ClickUp, this is not the video for you. So save yourself 20 minutes and I'll see you in the next video, okay? Let's go! So what is the coaching method? The coaching method, in a nutshell, is to coach the team how to configure and set up ClickUp themselves, instead of the typical approach of having someone setting it up and then handing it over. The coaching method is by far the most effective way of building up internal capability in process management and tool knowledge. It also saves you time from having to document SOPs and processes beforehand, since these can be built directly into the tool by the people who know them the best. If you want to go deeper into the coaching method and your role as a ClickUp organizational coach, go watch this video. The coaching approach divides a team into two main groups. The first are the Changemakers. These are usually the lead or the person most knowledgeable about how work actually flows in their function. They are the ones that you coach to set up ClickUp for their area, and they are the ones onboarding their own team. Then we have the typical users. This refers to everybody else, and they will be learning from the Changemakers. So now that we know what the coaching method means, how do we actually implement that in our organization? A rollout project would typically span over 5 phases. Phase 1 is the design phase. This phase is all about laying the groundwork. Even though the whole point is to get your people to set up ClickUp themselves, you'll still have to plan how you're going to coach them, just like a teacher preparing a curriculum before the class. In this phase, we want to understand the scope of the rollout and identify who our changemakers could be. So how do you do that? Step 1, produce an organization structure map. So this is not an org chart. You're not mapping out reporting lines. You're mapping out work packages. We're going to do this in 3 layers. In this fictional example, managing social media LinkedIn, this is one work package. So is website updates. These are recurring tasks, projects, and areas of responsibility. You want to map them out and cluster them into functions. In our example, these 2 work packages fall under the function of marketing. You can, of course, also do it the other way around, where you map out the functions first and then the work packages. Next, put the names of the people involved within each function in. The hierarchy representation is not really that important here at all. I have simply indicated who the team leads are with a different color. You might also have a situation where a single person is taking on multiple tasks across multiple functions. In that case, just put the person in multiple times. So now that we're done with the functional level work, the next layer of work is to map out the cross-functional work. This is work that involves multiple functions such as client onboarding or capacity planning. Even though they are cross-functional, the work is usually driven and owned by one department. Just highlight that particular department. And just a note, you don't have to map out every single step at this point. The key here is to identify what workflows there are and who owns them. It is not a streamlining exercise. Last but not least, company-level work. The rhythms that involve everyone. So these are all hands, OKRs, company-wide strategic projects. The owner of a company-level work is usually you, who is the founder-operator, or it could be divided with the more technical things being handled by the chief of staff. Step 2, draft a structure proposal for the tool. Now that we have the map, it is much easier to see what kind of work needs to be covered within ClickUp. What you want to create here is a rough workspace structural proposal. The first decision is a number of spaces because this directly relates to the number of changemakers that you'll need to involve. A useful default is that each major functional area gets its own space. So sales, marketing, operations, finance, customer service, technical delivery, and so on. But don't treat that as a rule. Spaces should follow operational ownership, not organizational labels. What this means is if a function has a distinct owner, runs meaningfully different workflows, and has a need for autonomy to organize its own work, then it needs its own space. To give you a concrete example of what I mean, let's say in our example company, Service Desk is a team sitting within Client Service, and Nina here reports to Marcus, who is the Director of Client Service. But Service Desk handles ticket-based bug reports and support requests from lower-ticket customers. So the work is high volume, reactive, queue-based, and measured around response times, resolution times, and escalation handling. The rest of Client Service, meanwhile, manages larger enterprise accounts. That work is higher touch, such as account planning, client check-ins, relationship management, and strategic escalations. So on the org chart, both will be sitting inside the same department, but operationally, they are very different. And that means it may make sense for Service Desk to have its own space within ClickUp, even though it formally sits under Client Service. And this will make both Nina and Marcus space owners / changemakers. So this is not a title. This is not a reporting line. This is simply a role. Now that you've nailed the spaces down, you can provide some thought starters for each space. I usually do this just in ClickUp docs. I'm showing here an example for marketing. We have previously identified 4 areas of work for marketing, namely content marketing, website updates, ad campaigns, and webinar support. As you can see in the example, we have mapped each of these into corresponding folders with a proposed structure for how the lists under it should look. And this doesn't need to be polished. It is a thought starter for your colleagues who might not be familiar with ClickUp or any work management platform at all. The owners you write down here are your changemakers. Step 3, have one-on-one conversations with your potential changemakers. Now that we know the scope, we know the spaces, and we know who the changemakers could be, at this point, I would reach out to these people before anything is official. Let them know what is coming and what you're going to ask them for. These conversations do 3 things. They build early buy-in and they let you assess technical comfort and willingness, which you can then use to tailor your training later. If someone isn't willing or able to be a changemaker, ask them to nominate someone from within their function who can be. And important, just as you're asking for their commitment, I'm assuming I'm talking to the owner, founder, operator, you have to commit back. Specifically, you have to give them the time and the permission to prioritize this. And if you don't, this rollout will fail. Full stop. Step 4, make a first draft of the workspace setup. Build a rough version of the structure in ClickUp, not a fully fleshed out one, just something simple to give the changemakers something to react to. This can mean that, out of 4 folders that you have proposed, set up one of them, just so that they get to see different ways of using ClickUp and they have exposure to how the different views look like, such as the lists, Kanbans, Gantt charts, etc. You also want to deactivate features that a team doesn't need yet. Fewer options means faster adoption. ClickUp has a lot of customizable options and it can be really overwhelming. So limiting them will help people get on board faster. And again, flag that this is a draft. You don't want to walk into the kickoff and have everyone think that this is already set in stone. Step 5, create a project timeline. Draft a rollout schedule across all 5 phases. And this is for sharing at the kickoff. Your changemakers will need to commit to it, so they should have input. For a team of 10 to 15, plan for at least 90 days from kickoff to stable adoption. This is something that is happening in parallel to daily business, so you will need to give people and yourself more lead time. Phase 1 is now done. Yay! Okay, so this is a very heavy foundational phase, but when you have done the prep work right, the rest will become so much easier. Phase 2 is the Changemaker Kickoff. This is where you walk through your game plan and empower the changemakers to share in ownership. The kickoff itself is just one group meeting with all your changemakers in one room. And this should be run like a working session and not a presentation. There should be 5 things on the agenda. The first one is ClickUp orientation, a basic quick introduction to what ClickUp is, the different hierarchies such as the spaces, folders, lists, tasks, subtasks, how to navigate through the tool and what each element does, etc. 2, Purpose and roles. Show them the organization structure map and ask if you've missed anything. Explain the roles and responsibilities of Changemakers and assign explicit ownership for cross-functional workflows. And don't forget to explain your own role too, what you're going to do and how you'll be supporting them through this. 3. Walk through the proposed structure. Stress that this is a starting point. It is not binding and you want their input. 4. Set up crash course. Show them the settings and features they will need to do their own configuration. Focus on what they need, not everything ClickUp can do. 5. Timeline review. Share your proposed schedule and discuss it. Make changes if necessary. Get commitment. And that is the kickoff. From there, you go build. Phase 3, build and refine. Since the last meeting, your changemakers have gone back and played around in ClickUp. During this phase, you want to have one-on-one check-ins with them. It is important to keep them as one-on-one meetings, even though I know this does not sound like the most efficient use of your time. Most people shy away from asking stupid questions, and the setup in one function might not be relevant for another person. And that is why you want to keep this one-to-one. And in each one-on-one, get them to walk you through what they've built. Ask clarifying questions. Use this time to evaluate how each space setup affects the other spaces in your organization. Specifically, look out for how they design their statuses and custom fields and if they have different naming conventions for the same issues. You want to make sure that each space owner or changemaker has enough autonomy, but at the same time, maintain a consistent baseline that can be understood easily by other functions. If there are disagreements, especially when it comes to how cross-functional workflows should be handled, this is also a time to bring the owners of the spaces in question together for a discussion. On top of that, phase 3 is also the time when you want to prepare the documentations and presentations for phase 4, which is the go live. The 3 most important documents to prepare are A running FAQ, B, a quick ClickUp onboarding guide covering basic features, and C, your company-specific ways of working document. These are the rules of the road for how the entire team uses ClickUp. I usually put this within the company wiki in ClickUp so that there is a centralized place to find this. By the way, I'm thinking of putting together a comprehensive ClickUp implementation guide using a coaching method, which will include a template for the organization structure map, a 90-day structure plan, as well as a template for all the documents that I have mentioned above. If you're interested in this, let me know. I have left a link in the description below, and I will notify you when this is ready. During this phase, it is also crucial to communicate progress to the broader team weekly. This keeps everyone in the loop and creates gentle accountability before the tool even touches them. Finally, stress test the setup with real or partial real data. When you and the changemaker agree that this holds up, you move to phase 4. Phase 4, team activation. This is the point where the rollout expands beyond the changemakers and reaches the rest of the organization. Start with a company-wide onboarding meeting. Use this meeting to explain where the rollout currently stands, what has already been set up, when teams are expected to begin moving their active work into ClickUp, and where people can find the resources you have prepared, for example, your way of working document. Just as importantly, this is a time to establish company-level usage expectations, which is essentially how ClickUp shows up in the operating rhythm of the business. For example, will weekly priorities be reviewed within ClickUp directly in stand-up? Will company-wide projects be tracked in dashboards within ClickUp? Will leadership updates or announcements live within the wikis, or will they continue to be within Slack channels? Will there be dashboards for other goals and company-level initiatives? This matters because company-wide usage signals commitment from leadership. It also shows people that their individual work is contributing to a larger operational picture. You should also explain how you intend for feedback and issues to be collected. During rollout, I would recommend lightweight check-ins every week or 2. Early friction is pretty normal, and you want to catch it while people are still forming habits. The rest of this phase usually consists of 3 things. Each changemaker runs their own team onboarding. You can join it if they find it useful for them, but ultimately they should lead the discussion. The second thing is each function migrates active work into ClickUp. Focus on current projects, recurring workflows, and near-term commitments. Don't waste energy migrating historical tasks. Teams begin working in ClickUp for real. This is where the tool becomes part of the day-to-day operating rhythm. Phase 5, Behavioral Correction. The tool is live. Now you watch and adjust. The rollout does not stop at going live. It is only done when people have adopted it into their actual work. And that is, of course, going to take some time. It is very normal. At this stage, you're looking for ways to fine-tune the machine. There are 2 things to do here. The first one is spot checks. Are tasks being updated? Is work happening in the tool or happening around it? Are people using the agreed fields and statuses? Are meetings and decisions being reflected back into the system? You don't have to be anal about it. You're just looking for any friction or confusion or signs of backsliding here. Usually, a quick message to the offender is enough. Like, hey, I noticed the project is being tracked in spreadsheets. Is something not working here? And this usually tells you very quickly whether the issue is just unclear process or some tool friction or a simple habit. And if the same question comes up more than once, update the FAQ and address it in the next team meeting. The second thing that should happen here are maintenance meetings with your changemakers every 2 weeks or so. So how are people responding? Are there any bottlenecks? Anywhere the system is being ignored? What needs adjustment? And during this phase, you also want to make small adjustments like deleting unnecessary fields or simplifying a particular process. Over time, you can slowly reduce the frequency of the maintenance meetings until using ClickUp feels like second nature. I wouldn't recommend that you stop it altogether, but maybe do a review once every half a year or so. And that is pretty much it. I know what some of you might be thinking right now. This all sounds great, Victoria, but I'm not sure if I'm comfortable enough with ClickUp to play the coaching role for my own company yet. I understand that this can be pretty intense. So if you would like my support in rolling this out for your organization, just drop me a message. You will find more information in the description down below. I am happy to have a conversation about how I can best support your organization. I hope you found this useful. Let me know if you have any questions. Ciao, ciao!